all about producing quality outcomes from projects. Of course, quality is a very important aspect in the building industry because it has so many ramifications if you produce bad quality from your projects. So just look at what is a quality outcome. What does that really mean? It means that you need to comply, first of all, with your plans and specifications, make sure everything's built as it was supposed to be, and also be fit for purpose. That is, satisfy the need for which it was intended. So quality isn't just about having the best materials, for example. It's about satisfying the need for which it was intended, which means that sometimes something that's a little, you may use cheaper materials if you're building a cheaper style house, but as long as that is a sturdy construction and built out of safe materials, and secondly, satisfies the customer's requirements. So it's about building something that's fit for use for what it was intended to be used for, and also satisfying the customer. So that's what quality is all about. Now, the building industry's had a bit of a rocky road over the past, probably 10 years particularly. And just as a little bit of background, a survey by the University of New South Wales found that more than 85% of new apartment blocks built since 2000 have had reported defects. And they're reported defects, not the tiny ones. They're ones that have actually ended up being reported to the authorities. And the most common defects reported were internal water leaks, cracking to internal or external structures, water penetration from outside, and defective roof coverings. So you can see that they're quite serious types of quality problems there. And the picture on this slide is actually a picture of the Opal Tower at Homebush, which we've all read about in the newspapers, which was, an extreme example where the whole building had to be evacuated and they're still trying to fix it. So it's costing everybody a lot of money. So, and everybody was pointing the finger at everybody else in terms of blame. So why has this poor quality happened? Again, just another little statistic, the Master Builders Association in ACT put the figure for poor quality building work in the ACT alone at $1 billion over the past 10 years. And one of the reasons that poor quality has been happening is that it's seen that there's been such a high demand for development that developers have rushed to construct new buildings, and sometimes using low quality building materials, and sometimes imported products that are not certified for use in Australia. But also, just in the rush to build, often they've compromised on quality inspections, etc., in order to complete the job quickly. And in the media, there's been a lot of contention too as to whether the use of private certifiers has also contributed to the problem, because there has been, in any industry, you'll always find the good people and the bad people. And there have been cases where certifiers have been seen not to be doing the right thing. So that also contributes to poor quality if they're letting through poor quality building work. But, in the end, poor quality costs everybody money, and that means not only the builder, the subcontractor, but also the customer. And it can certainly send builders and tradespeople bankrupt. So it's a very important thing to think about quality and really make that a high priority with all your projects, because it's very serious. If you're caught out for having poor quality, it can result in the end of your business. So this little slide is just looking at the importance of good quality. So what it's saying is that if you improve your quality, you're going to improve your company reputation, because you're going to have a good reputation as a good quality tradesperson or builder. Product liability, it means you're going to stand by your products because you know they're going to be good quality. And that's another thing where you can provide good warranties on your work. It means that you can charge a higher price. If you've got a reputation to be a good quality organization, then people will pay more for good quality too, because they'll feel more comfortable. And also, if you are producing high quality work, then you're going to have higher productivity. And the reason for this is that you won't be spending time fixing things or doing rework. So your productivity overall will actually increase. And of course, when you put all those things together, you'll end up with increased profit. So you can see that the emphasis on quality is going to benefit your organization, whether it's big or whether it's small, quite dramatically if you put that emphasis on quality. Now, I just want to point out there's a difference between quality and grade. Now, grade is related to technical features. It means that a grade is about often the expense. You know, a good grade of product will be more expensive. It'll have more features. It'll be nicer to look at, perhaps. Whereas quality is more related to meeting the customer's requirements. It still has to work, but it meets the customer's requirements. And the difference there is, an example is that a cheap small microwave with few features might be acceptable quality for the customer, provided it has a warranty period. A good warranty period. Now, the reason is that you might just want to put that microwave in the office kitchen, for example. So you don't want a super duper microwave with all the different features and convection ovens and things like that. So it means that for you as a customer, the cheaper microwave with few features is quality. As long as it's a quality product in itself, it may be lower grade because it doesn't have all those features, but you can judge the quality on whether it works or not, and does it work according to the specification. So that's the difference there. That the same thing with building, a high value home in the eastern suburbs, where all the building materials, especially the internal ones, are going to be very high grade, because they will want really good timbers, everything to be top class. Whereas building a smaller house, maybe for public housing, for social housing, it'll be basic, but it'll be good to live in. It'll be watertight. It'll probably look very nice, but it won't have those high quality finishes that perhaps the house in the eastern suburbs will have. And of course, it'll be a lot cheaper. So quality, of course, producing quality costs money. And there's always a trade-off, of course, between the money you spend on producing quality versus what you might have to spend if you don't produce good quality. So this is where the trade-off is. So good quality does cost money. And the major costs for producing quality outcomes are, first of all, prevention. And prevention means putting processes in place to make sure that you do things, you catch poor quality as quickly as possible. I'm going to talk about these in more detail in future slides. Appraisal, which means inspection and testing to actually test the quality. Does it conform with specification? And finally, the other cost, which is rectification, failure costs, which is rectifying any problems that have occurred. So that's a cost as well. And that's a cost of producing poor quality, of course. So, just going to talk about prevention costs. Now, this means ensuring that you have processes in place to prevent poor quality outcomes from happening in the first place. So one of the big things is ensuring that you implement quality-related training, that all the people you have working for you are trained appropriately in order to be able to produce good quality work. And always the less experienced people to work underneath experienced people, and to have a quality culture within your organization, reminding people, your employees, how important quality is for your organization. Now, the other part of prevention is always checking things at every point during the project, because the earlier you catch a problem, the cheaper it is to fix. Now, we call this quality assurance, and that means putting actions in place to check quality as we move through the project and fix things as early as possible. Now, the first one would be things like ensuring plans and specifications are reviewed prior to commencing work. So it's always good practice to spend quite a lot of time reviewing the plans and specifications, and probably bringing in the architect as well, and make sure that you first of all, fully understand them. And secondly, there's the opportunity to pick up any errors or ask questions. There may be omissions or errors. And if you do this before you commence work, then it's very easy to fix it. And it doesn't really cost any big money. So that's crucial for any work that relies on plans and specifications. And the same thing is if you're an architect too, before you hand over any work that you have undertaken, always have reviews. I know I was dealing with an architect's firm a few years ago, and each individual architect in that company, when they produced work, they used to have the whole have a huge review of about 8 managers and architects there in the organization, who would carefully go through all their plans and specifications in an attempt to find any errors that might be in there. So, that's quality from their point of view, but also once you receive them, as if you're a builder, then you should spend time going through them, making sure that you understand them, and perhaps picking up any other errors that may have slipped through. Now, of course, once work has commenced on construction, then it needs to be checked or tested at all points of time during the project. So, you need to plan for those inspections. And of course, there are the external audits or inspections required by the council, etc. But that's not all. It means you should have, as a project manager, you should always be arranging for inspections and checks to be undertaken all the time, all the way through the project. And, even checking work, don't wait till work's finished. Go and check before the work's finished. Go and check it while it's actually happening, because you may pick up poor quality work even at that stage. So the sooner you pick it up, the easier it is to bring it back on track. So prevention is the most important way of producing, cutting down costs later on for poor quality. Naturally, checking and reviews cost some money, but the cost is fairly negligible often with the cost of actually rectifying any problems. Now, the next thing is appraisal. That means the actual act of checking the work to find any defects and ensuring they're rectified before moving forward. So the sort of appraisal work could be, and I'll refer back to what I said before, holding the actual design reviews before commencing work. Under prevention, it was about planning to have those reviews. Now, under appraisal, it's actually holding those design reviews before commencing work. Inspecting the excavation, for example, and ensuring that it conforms to plans before laying the formwork and concrete. Another example might be testing electrical work directly after installation. And other appraisal would be your council inspections or external certification at key points in the project. So there are only just a few examples of the sorts of checking, inspection and reviews, inspection and testing work that should be constantly being done throughout any project. Now, the next phase is failure costs, and that means we have to rectify or fix up any problems with quality. Now, the sort of work, and that does cost money. So, but the earlier we catch problems, the cheaper it's going to be to fix it. So the sort of costs that can be incurred when we're fixing problems could be design changes. Now that if we catch those design problems before we commence work, then they're going to be cheap. If, however, there were design problems and the design has to be changed after building is commenced, then that can be incredibly expensive. The labour cost for fixing defects. Now that's it's a huge cost and it takes people away from other work. The cost of rework. Now, sometimes when we have to fix a problem, we're not only just fixing that problem, we might have to undo something that was already done quite well with good quality in order to fix the problem. It could be that there was a problem, for example, with the concrete slab, and but it wasn't found until the formwork or brickwork had been commenced. Now, if that was the case, it may be that you have to dismantle all the work that's been done so far in order to fix the problem with the concrete slab. So that would, having to undo the work that you've done above that slab would be called rework, because you'd have to undo it, fix the problem underneath, and then redo the work on top. It may also mean that you have to scrap material. You may have to you have to buy new materials and scrap the materials that you've already used because you can't reuse them. And then there's also a cost of schedule delays, because if you have to fix defects, it's going to delay your schedule. So it's also, and delays to schedule are going to be delays to your project cost, your project, and also the cost of your project. And, as we talked in the time seminar, any delay to a project means you've got to reorganize your contractors, and all of this costs quite a lot of money and can end up with even further delays. And then, of course, warranty costs. If the failure is found later on, then and after the work has been finished, then you can be up for warranty work, and that can be parts and labor. So other failures for rectification. So you can see that there are a lot of aspects of work that may need to be rectified, and it all costs money. So this little diagram here is just talking about showing you the sort of costs that how much it costs you the later on you go in the project. So if we just look at the top, appraisal costs. If we find a problem and fix it while it's in your own work area, in other words, a particular trade might find an inspection might find that problem before anything moves on any further, then we can say that that cost would be a factor of 1. And an example might be fixing the excavation or formwork before pouring the concrete slab. So we're just fixing the work we're doing now before we pass it on to the next stage. So if there's a problem, it will have fixing it will have a cost, but it would be, let's just say it's got a factor of 1. Now, the next stage is what we call internal failure costs, and that's catching and fixing problems before, but within the work area, but after, well, within the project, but after they've left that particular work area. So it could be that you find the problem when the next part of the work is being done. Like I said, here, an example, digging up the slab to fix the problem and then repouring the concrete. So it could be that the problem was in excavation, that there was it wasn't measured out properly. So you may have to dig up part of the slab and fix that problem and then repour concrete. So that means that that problem was not found till the next stage in the process. And that sort of problem has a factor of 10 in cost in general. So you can see that by letting that problem with the excavation slip through to the next stage, the costs to rectify that problem are going to cost about at least 10 times as much. Then the next stage is external failure costs. Now that means repairing the damage of problems caused by customers. And this is when we're in the warranty period or even beyond that. So that an example here, the customer finds that the concrete slab contains cracks and damps coming through. So that has a high cost of repair. There could be loss of reputation, and there could even be legal costs associated with these sorts of problems. So they say that the statistics show that the cost of repairing external failure costs is around 100 times. So you can see that catching problems and achieving quality first as early as you can in the project is going to be very beneficial to you in terms of cost, and also, of course, things like reputation, etc. And that's where we saw that in the slide a little while ago, that if you pay attention to all these things, you're also going to have increased profit. And that's what it's all about when you have a business. Now, the way to start ensuring that you're going to have quality on your project is before you start a project, you should produce what we call a quality plan. Now, it doesn't have to be a really huge document, but you should sit down and think about, how am I going to make sure that I have the best quality outcomes from my project? So the little plan describes what you are going to do to produce quality outcomes and the sort of things that you will consider. And there are very simple templates for these plans. And you don't have to write a lot. It's all about just writing down your thoughts and summarizing them. And first of all, what standards and regulations do you need to comply with? That's always the first thing to consider, because you must understand your own industry and know what standards and regulations apply to the work you are doing. So that's the first step, to really be very familiar with those. Then plan what internal inspections and tests will be required throughout your project. What reviews, like I mentioned, reviews of the plans and specifications up front, and for every stage, reviewing, inspecting and testing. And as I said, don't always wait until the particular job is finished. Go and inspect and test during that, while the work is being done, because it's even easier to fix if you're fixing problems that are only being created when the work's only half done. So you need to work out how those inspections and tests will be conducted, who will be responsible for them, and also how often you will do it. So as a contract administrator or a project manager, it's important that you keep going to the site and keep looking, keep inspecting the work, not just wait. Just the more you leave the distance between your inspections, the more probability there will be for poor quality work, because you won't be there to get on top of it on a regular basis. Now, once you have determined the formal tests that need to be done and who's going to be responsible for them, you need to develop inspection and test plans. And they're often called ITPs, inspection and test plans. Now, an inspection and test plan will detail exactly what is going to be inspected or tested and what the outcomes should be. So that's the plan. And an inspection and test plan is normally just a spreadsheet of some sort. And you have another column then for documenting the outcome of that inspection or test. So for each inspection or test that's undertaken, you will also document the outcome. Now, if that outcome was not what you expected, then you need to also mark that as being a defect, come to an agreement as to how that will be rectified, and then go and also perhaps a date, who's going to rectify it, and then arrange to inspect the rectified work. So there's a few columns you put in that inspection and test plan for the actual, when you are actually undertaking the tests. And you must document the outcomes of those inspections and tests, and document any rectification work that was done, and then the results of inspecting the rectified work. So inspection and test plans are just the absolute mandatory documents within the construction and engineering industries. And of course, you need to also in your plan detail any external inspections and certifications required. Now, all of these things, these tests and inspections, etc., should be put into your schedule as well, so that it's very clearly documented, and you've got a point in time where you know that you have to go and do these things. And of course, as I said, informal inspections while the work's being done is also really important. So quality plans, in fact, in large organizations, both in engineering and construction, the management will actually often require subcontractors to produce quality plans for their own work and submit those as part of the documentation that's submitted, like the safe work method statement and often environmental impact plans, etc. These are also, quality plans are also required. So this has been the case. I've seen it start to happen probably over the last 10 and 15 years, where many subcontractors are being asked to produce quality plans. And of course, the builder will also produce an overall quality plan for the project as well, and based on the quality plans produced by the subcontractors, but then there will be an overarching quality plan as well. Now, if you have your own organisation, even if it's relatively small, it's a good idea to have quality plans for your organisation and your type of work. And you can have a general quality plan and you can tweak it for different jobs if required. But I mean, I teach Diploma of Project Management, and I recently had a student who had his own organisation up in Queensland, and he was doing some construction work, and he actually was going to the trouble of becoming ISO certified. The ISO is the International Standards Organization, and they have quality standards, and you can become ISO certified, which is a very prestigious certification for your organization. And a lot of large companies, particularly construction companies, do become ISO certified. And it takes quite a bit of work because you have to set up quality manuals and policies and all sorts of things, and you have to be audited. But it is something that also is a good thing to do if you want to have a company that's known for quality processes, that you may want to become ISO certified as well. So that's something else to think about. But of course, this particular person, he would produce a quality plan for every work that he tendered for. He did quite a bit of government work. And of course, that's very important when you're doing government work, because the more certified you are, the more likely it is that you'll get government work. Now, at the end of the project, the customer needs to inspect and sign for acceptance for the completed work. And, for larger jobs, in some cases, the customer might engage an external inspector to come as well for the final inspection, because customers often don't know a lot about the building industry. So they'll often engage someone who does, in order to conduct a final inspection before they accept the finished product. So just be aware of that. It's also good practice to obtain feedback from the customer about their level of satisfaction with the job that you've done, because this adds to your perception of quality and your ability to improve as you move through different projects, because you can learn from feedback and you can improve for future projects. So always get feedback from your customer through a customer satisfaction survey. Now, a questionnaire is okay, but I think it's always a good idea to talk to your customer as well and get some verbal feedback, because questionnaires are often tick boxes and they don't really tell you the whole story. So understanding how your customer felt about the work you did is really important. And quite often when I've had work done or I've bought something, I'll get a phone call or an email about how satisfied I was with the service or the work done. So it's important to do that. And the reason they do that is because quality matters to the organisation and they want to improve. So we call that continuous improvement. And that's something we should be looking at all through our careers and whatever work we're doing, whether you're tradespeople or fully fledged builders, is always thinking about how you can improve for the next job. Now, I'm going to just talk about the warranty period because this is the period where your costs will be huge. Any work that has to be fixed after you've handed over to the customer is with that factor of 100 that we were talking about before. So you should always be aiming to have zero costs during the warranty period. Now, of course, that's not practical. There will always be little things that can be classed as defects, but the whole aim is to make sure they're small, not big ones, because you should always be putting the most effort into quality of the big things that could cost you a lot of money. So, but you know, as a tradesperson or a builder, always put money aside to cover the cost of fixing minor defects during the warranty period. You must put that money aside because it's a guarantee to you that you can actually do it. Now, you also have to, of course, ensure that home compensation cover is in place for any residential work over $20,000, which is protection for the homeowner if the builder can't fix defects. And it means if the builder can't fix defects, it means either they've gone bankrupt or there's some reason that they can't do that work, that it's beyond them. So that home compensation cover is there for the benefit of the owner. But it only covers work up to an amount of $340,000. So obviously it's not for the big building jobs, it's more for residential work. Now, the period of home warranty cover is for major defects is 6 years after completion of works and 2 years cover for non-major defects. So that's an important thing that must be in place when you're doing building work. Now, but as I said before, that insurance doesn't come into effect unless there's a reason why you cannot fix the defects at your own expense. So that's why you need to put money aside. Now, for defects in strata buildings, a fair trading building inspector might be engaged to determine whether the defect requires rectification, because there can be disputes over whether something really is a defect or not. And they may issue a rectification order. Now, that order is going to specify what has to be rectified and the time frame in which it needs to be rectified. So obviously defects are going to be costly, both for the customer and the builder, because if there are defects, it can impact the customer's ability to perhaps use part of the house or even live in it, and it will cost them money. And for the builder, of course, the cost of rectifying these defects can be quite high. And of course, there can be disputes over this, and it can end up in court, which means even more money. So what happens if a builder ends up in court? The court will need to satisfy themselves that the defect needs to be rectified. So the customer, it's going to be expensive for the customer because they'll have to employ a solicitor to take all this to court, and the builder will also need legal representation in order to determine whether the if there's a dispute over whether this is really a defect. Now, if the court determines that there is a defect, they may require the builder to fix the defect, and that order will be specific about the work to be done and the time frame in which it is to be done. Now, if the court feels that the builder doesn't have the ability to fix the defect, that they don't have any confidence that the builder can fix the defect, they can require the builder to employ at their own expense a licensed building work contractor to do the remedial work. So they may force you to find somebody else to do the work. And then if the defect's contractual, that is, an example might be if the windows are the incorrect size or in the wrong place, then the builder may be requested to pay compensation because it's a sort of defect where it's not easy to fix, and it wouldn't be worth fixing, but it means that the customer is going to be inconvenienced, but the builder may be requested to pay compensation for those errors. So they're all things that can end up costing you a lot of money. So just things to think about and keep that in mind. And of course, aim to have zero cost in that category. So in summary, good quality is doing the right thing and doing it right the first time. So it's all about making sure that you do things correctly, produce good quality outcomes, have a good quality culture in your organization, and that means that you're going to have a greater probability of doing the right thing and doing it right first off, and minimizing any rework throughout your project. And that way, by having a high quality culture within your organization, you will not only have a good reputation, but you will also maximize your profits.